about 3 years ago, I had a really weird summer, and it all had to do with pigeons. So ever since I was little, like, I've always had kind of things with pigeons, or more pigeons had things with me. And, you know, like this whole Alfred Hitchcock birds kind of thing, like, everybody has something in the universe that talks to them. Like, you know, when the universe wants to give you a message, my universe gives it to me through pigeons. Take that for what you will. So it all started this one month. I was walking to work right by where Letterman Studios are, by Hello Deli on 53rd Street. And I'm walking, it's about 7:30, and always there'd be like this group of pigeons pecking at like some seed. I don't know who was throwing the seed, but there was always this congregation of pigeons. And one morning as I was walking past, this brand new car drives up. This guy gets out wearing a suit with this huge net. And, you know, so I kind of stop. I'm the only one on the street because it's early. And he scoops up like 30 pigeons, and he puts them in his brand new car. And so he closes the door. You see pigeons like frantically kind of like bumping their little noses on the window. And like I give him this look like, what the fuck? And so he like kind of points at me menacingly like, don't you tell. So I keep on walking, and so I start telling everybody, like, have you ever heard of this? What is this? I kind of Google it, and there's nothing on, like, pigeons. So I start speculating, like, maybe he's trying to catch them for, like, Chinese food, or maybe there's this new, like, messenger service with homing pigeons. I mean, who knows? So that was the first part of this pigeon situation. And then the end of the week, my neighbor, at the time I lived in this tenement building in Hell's Kitchen, and I lived on the 6th floor of a walk-up. And right next to me, there was this guy who lived there for 48 years. And so I didn't even want to know what his apartment looked like. But in the back where my bathroom was, right by, let's say this is the bathtub and the shower, my bathroom window looked directly into his bathroom window. And I don't think he was showering very much, because I never saw him, thank goodness, because we didn't have curtains. But he died. That week he died. And I guess they removed the body. I don't really know what happened there. But there was his window was left open. And over the course of the week, his apartment started filling up with pigeons. So every time I would be taking a shower, there were these pigeons, like literally a foot away from me behind this glass, like cooing, like. He liked that time. I'm going to do it a lot during this story. So, and I can do the neck motions too. So there was a lot of that. And so like, but it wasn't like a happy, it was more like a menacing, like they were trying to tell me something, and it was like a warning. So now there were these two pigeon things, and like, you know, you don't really want pigeons cooing menacingly when you're completely naked every morning. Something was going on, and I was trying to figure out, like, what is the universe trying to tell me? And so that same period of time, that same like 2 weeks, I got fired. Not for anything bad I did, it was more of a layoff. But so now I was like, maybe the pigeons were trying to tell me that my time at my job was near. So I didn't know exactly if they were going to give me advice. But you know, I'd go in the shower in the morning now, later than usual, because I wasn't going to work, and a little bit more depressed. So it was more like, So I had a lot of free time on my hands. So I asked my friend Scott, who lived across the street from me, who also didn't have a job. The jobless tend to stay together. If he would teach me how to ride a bike. Because even though at the time I was probably like 33, I grew up poor and kind of strange, so I never learned how to ride a bike. But Scott owned a BMX company. And so we had these like little bikes. So I figured that might be okay to learn. So that day I went to his house, really hot summer day, and he's like, okay, I have to go upstairs and put together the bike for you. You wait here. So I'm there, and I see this guy, like maybe 2 stoops away, holding a pigeon, like holding one. And so, of course, I walked over there. I'm like, I'm finally going to find my answer. Like, this is the Messiah. This guy is going to tell me what the message from the pigeons is. So I ask him, and he's kind of a neighborhood guy. He's, like, not really homeless, but, like, there's alcohol in his breath, and he's missing a few teeth, but he's not really dangerous. And so he's holding this pigeon, and in one hand he has a piece of Wonder Bread. and he's kind of smushing the Wonder Bread on the beak of the pigeon, like, I don't know, forcibly trying to feed it. And so I go, dude, what are you doing? Why are you holding that pigeon? That's kind of gross. And he's like, I Nina, no. This pigeon is a beautiful creature, and there's nothing wrong with this pigeon except that it's depressed. It's lost its will to live. And I don't know how he knows that, but clearly he also speaks pigeon, and I'm kind of speaking pigeon at this point too. So I'm like, okay, what does this pigeon need to tell me? So he keeps smushing the bread in its face, and I'm thinking, it probably wouldn't be depressed if you'd stop smashing it in the face with fucking bread. And so he tells me, you know, I've never been out of the city. I grew up in East Harlem, and we used to fly these magnificent birds, and he told me what flying pigeons was. And I mean, essentially, he said he would go to the rooftop, and him and these other urban boys who had no control in their lives, these were poor kids, had this sense of control and power when they could take this bird and fly it, and the bird in turn would take all the other pigeons and make it fly in a circle and end up on their stoop. And so I was caught up in the moment, and it was like a really nice story, and the pigeon was really beautiful, and he kind of pulled the wing out, and I saw all the markings, and I mean, we all see pigeons all the time in New York, but they're more like, you think of them as flying rats, and they're kind of dirty, and you kind of think like you see them in masses with this whole like, I've got to go, I've got to go, I've got to go. And like, when you really think about it, they must think the same about us. Like, we always look like we're rushing, and we've got to go, we've got to go. And in the summer, we smell, and, you know, we kind of peck at things and at each other. So I was caught up, and I'm like, wow, you know what? It is a magnificent bird. And so I took the pigeon from him, and I was holding this pigeon, and I was actually kind of petting it, and I was kind of at one with the pigeon, but not really. And it was really soft, like bunny fur. And, I mean, it was really a beautiful, very sensual experience that I had with this pigeon. Not romantic, just sensual. And so, you know, I was caught in the moment, and I was petting like its little face, kind of encouraging it, and I started going like, and it would go back like, and it wasn't menacing, it was kind of, it felt like it was understanding. We had this understanding until this guy in a suit walked by, and he was like, that's disgusting, like you're gonna get a disease. And I like, the pigeon fluttered, and I handed it back to the guy, and I was like, you know what, that is disgusting, what am I doing? And I started getting hives, like I really started getting hives, and I'm scratching, and then Scott came down with the bike for me to ride, and like I looked at Scott, and like I never really liked Scott. Like Scott was, he looked just like Leonardo DiCaprio, and that could kind of, you would be like, wow, that's a good thing. But instead of, like, he was always like, oh yeah, girls like me because I look like Leonardo DiCaprio. But with Scott, I almost like didn't like Leonardo DiCaprio now because he looked like Scott. So I was like, so he tried to teach me how to ride a bike, and like an hour later, we came back, and I'm sweaty, and I still kind of have hives, and I'm a little itchy, and I'm just anxious to get home. So I say goodbye to Scott, and I'm crossing 9th Avenue to go to my house. And as I'm crossing the street, in the middle of the street, there it is. The pigeon is dead and run over by, like, you see pigeon guts. And I know it's my pigeon. Like, I know those markings. I spent quality time with the pigeon. And more so, I know that this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a sick bird that, like, by accident got hit by a car. It purposely walked into traffic. It really had lost its will to live. And I felt really sad because I had had this intimate moment. I mean, literally just like maybe a half hour before, I was like at one with this pigeon, and now it was dead. And I mean, I don't know, I would really like to give you some lesson about what I've learned. And I wish there was some sort of resolution, but after that day, the pigeon stuff stopped. I haven't had any encounters with pigeons for the last 3 years. I'd like to say that I felt a little happier about my own existence after seeing the pigeon dead. And I guess what I learned was, you know, it's a tough world, and we're all in a race, and we're all cooing at each other, and just don't walk into traffic.